Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. We are coming at you live from New York. This is Spirit Matters, your regular Bhakti Center spiritual check-in. My name is Dal Guranga. I'm here with the Chuta Gopi, and we are glad that you are with us. We have our live Zoom studio audience who tunes in live every morning. If you want to join us live any morning, just write to us at spiritmatters@bhakticenter.org or find the Spirit Matters page on our bhakticenter.org website. And you can get our Zoom info, join our WhatsApp group, be in touch. We like to keep in touch with people. And as always, you can write us at spiritmatters@bhakticenter.org. If you just want to share, be in touch, say hi. Chuta Gopi is co-leading a India pilgrimage this fall. We're announcing it every day from now for the next 9 months, whatever it is, 6 months, end of September 30th, I think it is, you're going. So the last day or two of September into the first 2 weeks of October, going to, where are you going? You're muted, my dear sister.
They lied to me. They're like, you could just press the space bar and unmute yourself, and then they lied.
They're constantly lying to us.
Constantly.
That's why we're here, to dispel ignorance.
That's right. We're starting at Govardhan Eco Village. Then we're heading to Rishikesh.
Ooh.
Then we're going to Karoli.
Ooh.
Then Jaipur. Then Vrindavan.
Ooh. Karoli and Jaipur, these are special places for Bhakti yogis because the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, who are the direct disciples and followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in our beautiful lineage, they established various temples in Vrindavan with very ancient, beautiful deities. And at a certain point, Vrindavan was invaded by the Mughal Empire at the time, and they had to relocate many of these deities for safety in Rajasthan, which is a militaristic state. And so Karoli is in Rajasthan. And so there's beautiful, large, iconic temples that are beautifully architectured and still there today, but they're not in use because they were desecrated 500 plus years ago. And so, but those original deities are been relocated in various places in Rajasthan, Karoli and Jaipur. And so that's the significance of those places to go and see. So it's very, very special.
Lots of these deities that we're going to see are over 5,000 years old.
Quite old.
And they have been...
That's before Facebook for all of our listeners out there.
And if you were ever interested in seeing something, like, you know, if you're like a Vedic archaeologist nerd like myself, and you really want to see things that were like touched, dealt with, worshipped by the great grandson of Krishna, now is your chance. So the early bird spots are almost full.
Almost full.
Sign up if you have not.
You get like $500 off for early bird spot.
Sign up. It is going to be a whole journey of saving God and saving ourselves.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Also, we got community groups at the Bhakti Center, so please check those out on our website. Also, I wanted to make an announcement. I'm going to start sharing. Awakening the Self is a 6-week wisdom journey that I'm taking online. It starts Saturday, February 25th, I think, whatever day that is. It's a Saturday, I know that. 24th, 25th. It's a 6-week, Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern time, 6-week online journey about the foundational principles of spiritual life and Bhakti Yoga, starting all the way from Aham Brahmasmi, I am spirit, to the idea of exploring and experiencing divine reality. So if you're interested in the foundational spiritual principles of spiritual life as seen through the Vedic literatures, sign up for this course. It's donation-based. So there's a suggested donation, but people can give according on a sliding scale. It's 6 weeks. It's online. It's with me. It starts at the end of this month. bhakticenter.org. It's called Awakening the Self. So please check that out. Okay, those are our announcements for today. Let's get back to our regularly scheduled program, which is sharing from Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita means Song of the Divine. And we've been churning it out, reading this special song, this poetic, epic, and narrative, and give us a little spiritual juice for the day, and then go on from there. So we've been reading the beginning of the 4th chapter. 4th chapter begins with Krishna describing the idea of parampara, the idea of literally meaning from one to another, the idea of spiritual knowledge being passed down from generation to generation, as opposed to reinventing the wheel every generation. And we have that understanding in every area of knowledge and science that we accept. But somehow spirituality, we sort of feel like we just got to figure it out on our own. And Christian's saying, no, 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 no. People have figured it out. People have figured it out, and they have something to share. And so let's hear from them, and let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater just because we've have some people who abuse spiritual power for nefarious purposes. I don't know where I'm going with these words. But there is actually integrity and truth that is there through the ages for us to benefit from. And let's not lose sight of that and open ourselves up to access that information in a powerful way. And then we read text 4 and 5.
Amazingly, to just add to what you were saying is
Add it. That's why we're here.
that Krishna is saying this. So people were going to use religion for nefarious purposes over 5,000 years ago. So the things
Not
that
new.
we think, yeah, nothing is new. And we think, oh, there have been so many atrocities and people are doing horrible things to each other. They always have been.
Mm.
Eventually, Krishna will get into that in just a couple of verses from here. But yesterday, we were talking about the idea of new year, new me, and what if there is no new me? You had points that you wanted to share on that.
Thank you so much, because I generally forget what I had for breakfast by the time the evening comes, and so I don't always remember things. But that is true. You were talking about like new year, new me, and I was thinking about the idea of because I'll just read these verses that you read yesterday. Well, text 5, Krishna says to Arjuna, many, many births, both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. And Krishna, a lot of the names that Krishna uses for Arjuna have a he uses them for a specific reason. And so this word subduer of the enemy, param tapa, subduer of the enemy, Krishna's sort of saying, like, you think you're so big and tough and amazing, like you've accomplished so much, you can't even remember who you were in your past life. And so Krishna's saying that, put into context, that you may be the subduer enemy in this life, but we don't know who we were in our past life or where we're going to be in our next life. And so Krishna's saying, I remember everything. I remember the full history of where we've been and where we're going. And this isn't your first rodeo. Many, many births, both you and I have passed. And there's this idea of, you said like new year, new me. And it's like, what if there isn't a new me? Like, do I have to constantly rediscover myself? And the idea that came to my mind is, what about the old me? Like, what about the original me? What about the me that's buried underneath all of the identities that I try to create for myself and think I need to be to what if reaching my potential is actually retracing my steps and shedding layers of the ego to discover the immortal diamond that is there underneath? Like, there's a beautiful analogy that I love about a gem or a diamond or a ruby or some precious, precious stone that, let's say, it gets covered in dirt, and let's say you roll it down a hill and it just gets covered and covered and covered and covered in dirt. At a certain point, it just looks like a lump of earth. It just looks like mud. It just looks like a dirt clot, right? And the idea is that you just have to remove all of the dirt and discover that gem that's underneath there. And so I think that so much of the idea of self-discovery is not becoming our true self, it's just remembering and discovering our true self. And so I was just thinking that, like, the idea of that, like, we sometimes use this language, and I like this language. I use it, like, our journey towards wholeness. It's not that we have become broken or unwhole, but it's just that we've just kind of forgotten. And I think it's important for us, because there are different theologies in spirituality related to the nature of the soul. Some may not even believe the nature of the soul. This is all you got, and you die, that's it. Some people believe that we are inherently broken, and that through grace or through efforts, or however you might believe, that we may come to some place of saving grace. And the Vedic theology is that we are inherently pure. We are inherently whole. And just like the sun is ever bright, but the clouds cover our vision from it, and it seems cloudy, it seems dark, it seems hazy. But the only reason it's hazy is because of the pollution, because of the clouds, because of the cataract on my eye. It's not because the sun itself is diminished in its potency or in its brightness. And so we are also like that shining immortal sun of the soul. And I think that to just give us a little bit of, I don't know, a little bit of faith, a little bit of encouragement for ourselves to remember that and keep that in mind. That's where I was going with that.
I love it. And I think, it is a little bit different from other theological traditions where you hear
Mm,
of like original sin. You've got this idea of you come in sinful and you've got to clear that all out. And here, uh, Krishna is encouraging us. Look, you were completely, you had a blank slate. It
mm.
was fine. We were fine.
We had a good thing going. Christian's like, we had a good thing going.
And this, constantly calling Arjuna by name after name after name after name, he's been reminding Arjuna this entire time, I know you. I know
Mm,
you. I know everything about you. And not just this lifetime, every lifetime. I know you. And that to me is so comforting. The idea that someone would fight to know me, to have me remember them, and to have me remember what we had. And so Krishna is saying to every single living entity, we had a good thing going. And I know you. I know you even better than you know yourself. And then he encourages Arjuna, you can do this. I know you and you can do this. This is nothing for you. This happens in the blink of an eye. It's not even the end of your story. So how many days, how many times do we go through life feeling like this is the end of the story? And Krishna's like, it's barely the end of the chapter. I know you. You've got this. There's nothing you can't do because I'm right here by your side. I've been
mm,
by your side and I'll continue to be by your side every lifetime, every moment.
mm. That's a really beautiful, beautiful reminder. Um, Krishna knows us. Krishna knows us deeply. And he's constantly reaching out. I was giving class this morning for the Bhakti Center, and this theme comes up again and again. I was referencing some of these verses from the Bhagavad Gita because they've been in my mind this week. And in text 3, what was coming up when in the Bhagavatam class I was giving this morning, one of the verses, it was talking about being able to um that the devotees of Krishna are able to see him as he is, to understand his actual nature and position. And Krishna mentions here in text 3, just a couple verses ago, that very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is told today by me to you because you are my devotee as well as my friend and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. And I was explaining or referencing the idea of that God is always present in our life. It's just a matter of whether or not we are looking for him or not. And I think the hallmark of a bhakti yogi, a hallmark of a devotee, hallmark of a spiritualist is that we're always looking to see how God's hand is reaching down into my life. And I think in material consciousness, we have this concept of like blessings, right? And the idea of that a blessing or God's hand equates with a certain level of material prosperity, you know, that God reaching down into my life, like, oh, they must be blessed by God. And I think that when we advance in spiritual life, we mature in our understanding of what's a blessing, and what does it mean for God to be reaching into my life, or what does it mean for God to be present. And I think that becomes the task, the challenge for us at every step. And sometimes it's really, really hard, and I get that. And sometimes the worst advice you can get, I was watching a comedy show recently, and the guy said, sometimes you go to a party and there's those persons who says, everything happens for a reason. He says, I always feel like going up and just slapping that person. And then he's like, why'd you do that for? And he's like, you tell me. You're the one here that knows everything happens for a reason. And so sometimes the worst thing you can tell somebody is that everything happens for a reason. This is a blessing in disguise. I mean, there is a beautiful song. I forget the name of it, but it's a song that talks about, um, you know, what if it's something about like mercies in disguise or blessings in disguise, and the idea that sometimes things, when we're in the moment, in the thick of it, what we need is comfort and care. But looking back, we can see that actually, like, that was God carrying me through something very beautiful. Yeah, there's that beautiful, the story of footprints, that Jesus allegory, the idea that someone at the end of their life is looking at their footprints in the sand, and they're seeing that there's two footprints, one of God walking side by side with somebody. Then the person looks back and says, the most difficult, challenging periods of my life, I see that there's only one pair of footprints. Like, why did you abandon me in those most crucial moments? And God said, it was during those times that I carried you. And so those were God footprints carrying us along the way. And I think that's all our task is, as devotees, as yogis, as bhaktas. It's not to be perfect. It's not to have perfect sadhana and perfect outlook and always respond perfectly in every situation. It's just to try to carry the faith that God is here with me in my life, and that God is guiding and directing this somehow, some way, and I'm trying to align with that divine will. And we're talking about how, like Radha Mulidar, even here at the temple at the Bhakti Center, Radha Govinda in Brooklyn, it's like they're not here in New York for the pizza. They're not here for the weather. They're not here for the Broadway shows. Like, they're here for us. They're here because they love us and they show up for us. And Krishna will say just a few verses later down the line, whenever there's a decline in dharma and a prominent rise in adharma, and to lift up my devotees, as well as to reestablish dharma in the world, I appear again and again and again and again and again in this world and in your life. And I'm going to keep reaching out, reaching into your life again and again and again and again. And so I was just appreciating that Krishna knows us, and Krishna is reaching into our lives again and again. And all I have to do is just look. And if I don't see it, I just have to hold the faith that I just need to keep looking harder, or I know this will be revealed to me, or I know that Krishna is working. I may not see it today or tomorrow. It may take me a year, take me a lifetime. But my goal is that I want to see Krishna's hand at every step of my life.
You and I feel like we started communicating over a, a live reading that I had done, and it was all about there's a time
Right.
for
I remember where I was when I listened to that. I was in
yeah, there's a time
Florida,
for
sleeping in the guest room of Giant Shama's house.
philosophy. See, now that's powerful. Like, that's something, when you remember what you were doing, what was happening at a time when something kind of hit you, makes it such a profound moment. And there was a time for philosophy and there's a time for love, and I think that was one of the most vulnerable, like, online live moments that I had ever kind of really, really done. And that is that's Krishna. And it's exactly what you were saying. Sometimes when we're in the thick of it, it doesn't have to be our job to make that a teachable moment for somebody else. What if we are not meant to be the teacher? What if we are just meant to hold hands and, Ram Dass says, walk each other home,
Hmm.
which is such an interesting and profound statement. Like, what if my purpose is not to sit there and be this overarching teacher archetype for all of everybody? What if that's
Yeah.
my ego, saying that I have to now tell you, everything happens for a reason? I'm like, actually, maybe, as just one spark of Krishna's splendor. What if my job is just to be loving through it?
Hmm. There's a story, a beautiful story. Glennon Doyle tells this story from the Bible about the origin of the phrase, let one who is without sin cast the first stone. And she was relating it to the idea of judgment and criticism in spiritual circles. And there's the story is that there was a woman caught in adultery, and people wanted to gather around them and stone her to death, and Jesus walked up and was like, let he who has not sinned cast the first stone. And then everybody like put down their stone and walked away. And then Jesus told her, now go leave your life of sin. And then people quote that I was like, see, she told her to leave her life of sin. So it's like, we have to make sure that people leave their life of sin and hold them accountable and et cetera. And she was like, so you read that story and you think you're Jesus? Like that's the role you play in that story. Like you read that story and you think that you're Jesus. He's like, that's God's role in each person's life. Our job is to just simply put down our stone, walk away, and let God have a moment with whoever he's working on at that time. And so we sometimes put on the spiritual police hat. You know, we read instructions from the Bhagavad Gita and we forget. And you mentioned this at the beginning of this episode right now. Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. Krishna is saying these things. Krishna is saying things that we cannot sometimes. And so Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. And we sometimes think that we go around and play the role of Krishna in other people's lives. Well, Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, yeah, Krishna said it in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna had his moment with Arjuna. You read the Bhagavad Gita and you think that we're going to play the role of Krishna and somebody like, I'm okay, let's do role playing. You be Arjuna and I'll be Krishna. It's like, no, that's not how it works. Krishna is Krishna. Everybody finds their own inner Arjuna. And sometimes we just have to put down our stone and walk away and give people space and let God do his work in somebody else. Or maybe we're there just to hold space when that person needs love and care, but we're not the ones playing Jesus in that parable. We're not the ones playing Krishna in this story. And I think we get that confused a lot of the time. And just like you're saying, it's really what's my role in this situation? And it's not being God for somebody else. And it's not always being the spiritual police person. But again, it's a faith and it's a trust. As you said, there's just like Krishna knows me, Krishna knows them also. And actually, Krishna knows them better than I know them. You know, there's one time when I first, before I got married and I first moved out of the ashram, I lived as a monk for 10 years. And I changed ashrams. And, you know, my wife, Rasika Gopi, when I first started to get to know her, and I told Radhanath Swami, you know, I'm changing ashrams and, you know, I'm associating with this girl named Rasika Gopi. She's from, you know, she lived in DC and she's your disciple and et cetera. And I was, because he knows he has so many people and doesn't know everybody. And he was like, yes, I know her. I knew her before you knew her. I was like, true. And so it's like Krishna's like, yes, I know them. I knew them before you knew them, and I'm on it. I'm on it.
And you know, Krishna will tell Arjuna later in the Bhagavad Gita, he's constantly stressing, I am the doer. Everything is already happening by my design. You can be but an instrument in the plan. And so that advice goes for all of us. Krishna is the doer, and we can choose
Mm,
whether to be an instrument in the plan or a hindrance to it.
mm,
That choice is ours,
mm,
but it is not up to us to be the controller, to be the doer. Um, and eventually, you know, one of my most favorite verses will come up, this ye yatamam prapadyante, as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. And I'm sure we'll get into that because I have a lot to say when that verse comes. But Krishna is the great reciprocator.
mm,
So how many times have I like levied and thrown all of these accusations at Krishna? But really what Krishna does is he just reciprocates with what we're giving.
mm,
And so if we are constantly giving off the energy of I can't deal with you right now, leave me alone, then we turn around and we say, but why have you forsaken me? I feel so alone. Why have you left me? We
mm,
kind of need to check in and find out how many times a day who we are telling Krishna, go away, I can't deal with you right now, I can't do this.
mm,
Gabrielle Bernstein had a thing where it's like, you know, you check in each day several times a day with your body, find out where you're anxious, where you living in fear. But to that end, I want to check in with myself several times a day and figure out, have I been telling Krishna, okay, I'm ready, come on in, I'm so glad to see you? Or have I been constantly living in this state of I can't do this with you right now, I
mm,
can't, I need you to just kind of go away for a bit,
mhm.
because it will determine how lonely or connected we feel.
Yeah. Beautiful. And in this very chapter, just a few verses down the line, Krishna mentions, as all surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. Osana Prita, the idea of Krishna being the ultimate reciprocator. And I love how you mentioned that can I check in myself and every moment, am I inviting Krishna in, or am I putting him on hold? Am I waiting? There was a meme, our friends Jay Shetty and Roddy, he's just releasing his book, 8 Rules of Love. And so he's posting a lot of stuff about relationships. And there was one he reposted. It was him and Roddy. They were in a car and they were like joking. And it said, like, when I asked him how his day was, and he said it was great, but he only just saw me, you know? And then she's playing that song by, if I'm not your everything, how about I be nothing? It's like, hey, how was your day? Great, but you just saw me. Meaning like how could you have a great day when you just saw me? And I think that's us for Krishna. It's like we're trying to have a great day without Krishna. And it's how am I checking in with myself and inviting Krishna in or pushing Krishna away? And really it's one of those things. So I appreciate that. I love that point. We've hit our time for today. Thank you for all the beautiful chats and things going on in here. I saw Chuta wrote a chat. Other people are mentioning stuff in our live Zoom chat. Thank you. We're going to turn it over to Kimberly, our Wrap It Up Achari. She wraps things up for us. If you like to take notes or you just want to take away something that you can hold in your pocket and bring with you, tune in, turn up the volume. And what do you got for us, Kimberly?
Thank you. We're taken away to remove the muddy layers to discover our immortal diamond of our true, pure, and whole spiritual nature. To put down the stone and let God do his work. Krishna is the ultimate reciprocator, being an instrument to the plan and carrying the faith that God is carrying us through life, and to hold hands and walk each other home.
Beautiful. I feel like that one's come up a couple times. Hold hands and walk each other home. That's like the theme of our podcast. That's what we're doing here. Spirit Matters. Holding hands and walking each other home.
It's a cute image.
A cute image. Closing word, Achyuta.
I just want to remember the importance and the gravity of being able to hold space for someone going through something. Sometimes we think that we have to say all the things or do all the things, or if I haven't said all the things, then am I really that important? Is my importance just, and sometimes my importance is linked to being an instrument of Krishna's grace by simply being there, by being able to hold space. And that is a very, very big challenge for me, to sometimes say nothing, but to hold space and to not judge the person, to not have to use it as a teaching moment, and to just kind of allow them to come to these God-given conclusions, because Krishna's there. And sometimes we just need to be able to facilitate holding that space, like a pujari on the altar. We're on the side. Krishna is the main star of the show, and we just try not to stand in the way.
Love that. Thank you so much. 2 quick things for me. One is that somebody wrote in the chat, our dear, wonderful Sydney, and if you figure out you are putting him on hold, Krishna on hold, how do you stop doing this? It's a great question. Can somebody bookmark that for tomorrow? Because I think it's a good one. We can talk about that. Sometimes we just talk about, just remember Krishna and bring Krishna into your life. And it's just like, sure, how do I do that? It's not easy. And we all struggle with that. And so thank you for asking that. And then, oh yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. Compassion, the idea of how do I start to replace my judgments with compassion? And, judgment doesn't mean like I lack discernment. We could talk a lot about that, but I think that, when I see maybe shift from my need to correct to an impulse to just be compassionate. And that compassion might mean me stepping in and do something, or that compassion might just be me withholding judgment and allowing Krishna to come into your life, kind of what you're saying nothing. And I just think it's so much the mood of how we do things, you know, even if I'm right, but if I'm coming at it in a mood of like, you're wrong and I'm going to set you straight, it's just never going to land well or have the right effect. And so I think it really like begs the question for me of like, where am I coming from? Am I coming in hot? Am I coming in with anger? Am I coming in with righteousness? Am I coming in with, you know, indignation, etc.? Like, or am I just like really genuinely caring about an individual and praying for Krishna to guide me how to help them, you know? So that's my little takeaway. I love you guys. Appreciate all of you. Please, we're encouraging everybody, if you're listening right now, in 30 seconds, when this finishes, I want you to stop what you're doing, go on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. Even if you don't listen there, go to Apple Podcasts, go to Spotify, give a 5-star rating, leave a review. We love to hear from you. It helps us share with other people and connect with more people. We love you. We're grateful for you. And we'll see you all again tomorrow, same time, same place. Hare Krishna.